A little bit later on today, there's going to be a vote in Parliament to back up what the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, wants to do, and that is to prescribe three groups. One of them is Palestine Action. We remember the Palestine Action broke into RAF Bryce Norton and they sabotaged a few planes there, causing millions of pounds worth of damage. There have been some arrests, but no charges so far in that. We'll see how that develops. Last Friday, actually, I asked the Labour MP Richard Bergen whether he thought that Palestine Action should be prescribed. This is how the interview, or some of it, went.
Do I think they should be prescribed? That's what's going to happen when the Home Secretary brings an order on Monday and there'll be a vote potentially on Parliament on Wednesday. I can say very clearly to you and your listeners that as someone who believes in civil liberties and someone who believes that the criminal law is there to deal with acts of criminal damage, I'm very concerned of the implications of prescribing an organisation. I don't think people need to be a supporter of an organisation to say it's there can be concerning implications if they're treated.
That was Richard Bergen there, the former Shadow Justice Secretary under Jeremy Corbyn. One of his former colleagues is Lord Walney, John Woodcock, who was a Labour MP. John, I'm sure you totally disagree with Richard Bergen.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's not a matter of civil liberties to commit acts of criminal sabotage like Palestine Action have done systematically over a number of years. I understand that it needs to be explained why this group is going to be prescribed as a terrorist organisation, but actually, when you look at the law, the definition of terrorism that is laid out in the Terrorism Act 2000, which I assume that Mr. Bergen, as former Shadow Justice Secretary, will have been aware of, it makes clear in that criminal damage to property can be viewed as terrorism if it is done in a political cause, and that is what Palestine Action have done for years, on top actually of members of their groups facing serious charges of violence with a sledgehammer related to some of those incidents. So actually, I think most of the public, once that is explained to them, will say, well, why has it taken this long to bring this group to heel, as hopefully is about to happen in Parliament this week.
We have seen, of course, many people supporting Palestine Action. A singer from the band Kneecap wearing a T-shirt saying we are all Palestine Action. It'll be interesting to see whether Richard Bergen and others actually vote for this or abstain or vote against. Later, we know that Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott and John McDonnell, when Al-Qaeda was to be prescribed, voted against that. I'm not suggesting that this won't go through. I think it'll go through very, very convincingly, but there are those in Parliament, including perhaps, I would be surprised if the 4 MPs who are part of the independent group alongside Jeremy Corbyn vote for this. There are those who are elected members of Parliament who don't agree that Palestine Action should be prescribed. What do you make of that?
Well, I think they're entitled to make that case in Parliament. In a democracy, you have to be able to debate who is on a prescribed list and who isn't, because it is, of course, a really serious sanction to provide. But I think they are totally wrong, and I think that Labour is going to have to look at its own house and look at those who, its MPs and those within the wider Labour movement who stand up for Palestine Action, despite the way that they have repeatedly targeted, terrorised workers. It's been incredibly intimidating working in some of the defence factories when suddenly you have these masked activists on the roof, and the fear of threat, of violence, of threat from that. That should not be any part of the Labour Party's values. And I hope that the party leadership, for all its difficulties this week on the welfare bill, will make that crystal clear to its members and those who are affiliated to the party once this prescription goes through.
Just speaking of the party you once were an MP for, John, I wonder what you make of the problems that Keir Starmer is having this week and all the speculation around Rachel Reeves' position.
Yeah, I've been spokesman to the Prime Minister to the last Labour government, and this is. I mean, obviously, it is a terrible situation that they're in. But what matters from here is whether the leadership of this party can get up off the floor and set a proper direction for the country. They've got to do that, and then also those Labour MPs who brought their own government to its knees this week have got to have a long think about what they want to do with their time in Parliament, because of course I empathise with their concerns over the changes to those disability payments. I've been an advisor in the Department for Work and Pensions as well, but to have actually defeated and humiliated their own government in the Commons in the way that they did is not something that can be sustained if Labour is to have any hope of maintaining itself as a credible electoral force over the course of this Parliament.
John, thank you. That is John Woodcock there, Lord Walney, talking about those issues.